All right, friends. So we are going to be doing an introduction today to our next art project. And the next art project we are going to be working on, as I'm sure you figured out, is a clay project. So this is the project that we are going to begin. We are going to be using clay coils to make a Christmas tree. So this is our inspiration, I guess you would say, for our project. I'm trying to figure out where I can lay this so you can see. So today we're doing some practice. We are going to be using Play-Doh to practice rolling out some coils. Now, one way that you can do this is to try and make one big long coil wrap around. That's probably not going to be the very best option. What you'll probably want to do is try to make 2 or 3 medium to long length coils. So I'm going to start by breaking my Play-Doh in half, and I'm going to start with one chunk of my dough here. And we're going to roll out a coil. We're going to roll out a coil, and you can start with just one hand. You just kind of roll back and forth, moving your hand from left to right. Once it gets going, you can use 2 hands to make it stretch a little bit faster. So all I'm doing is I'm rolling back and forth, but I'm pulling my hands apart as I do it. And that is going to make your coil nice and consistent. So you don't want one end that's really wide and one end that's really skinny. That's why we're practicing. We want it to be as close to the same all the way down as possible. Another thing that takes a little, it's a little tricky to do, I guess, but you get the hang of it after doing some practices, is as you're rolling, stretching your fingers across too actually helps. So I start in the middle, and I'm just moving my fingers to the left and right. And that helps create a nice even coil. Your coils should be about as thick as your finger is. So you don't want them to be as thick as your thumb. That would be way too big. And you don't want them to be super skinny like your pinky. You want them to be about as thick as your pointer finger. Once you have that made with your Play-Doh, you are going to practice building your tree. And when we do this with clay, with the actual ceramic clay, we are going to be scratching and slipping, and you learned about that in the video previously. But with Play-Doh, we're not going to be practicing that part today. What I want you to do is try to practice building your coils so that it tapers in. So each time you put a ring on, you have to actually put it on the inside a little bit so that it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. If you don't, what you're going to end up with is just a column of coils. So each time you're going to stick it inside the coil before so that it starts to get tapered up, because you're trying to build a triangle shape. You want this to be triangular, or like a cone. Conical is another word. And so that's what we're really practicing with the Play-Doh today. So I'm going to take another chunk of my clay. I'm going to roll out my next coil. And each time you build a coil on top of the one before, you have to scratch and slip it together. Remember, slip is a water and clay mixture that acts like a glue. For this project, another option instead of using the slip is a technique called the wet and wiggle. So you would scratch the lines and then wet it with just water, and then when you press your next one on, you wiggle it together. And that helps it stick together as well. So we might, depending on how this goes, we might be doing the scratch and slip technique, or we might be doing the scratch, wet, and wiggle technique. So I'll keep you posted on that whenever we start working with clay. But for now, with the Play-Doh, we are just practicing on rolling our coils to make them nice and consistent. You don't want it thick here, skinny in the middle, thick down here. And that's tough to do. It does take lots of practice. So I'm going to go back here. And again, I'm trying to squish my clay, or my Play-Doh, into the center so that we create a tapered cone instead of a cylinder. So as you can see, I've created this Christmas tree shape by making the triangle, and that's our goal today. So hopefully you have fun practicing with Play-Doh.